Great. All right, everybody. I have a special treat here. This is a gentleman that I've had the pleasure to meet with, not only in person, but do Zooms like this several times over the years. His name is Jim Cathcart. And before I let him do his own introduction on himself, I want to give you guys a little background on Jim. I met him at Cal Lutheran University speaking event and just blew my mind. One of the most amazing speakers I've ever heard speak in any type of topic, but primarily it was on relationships and sales. But if you guys have heard of some of the legends, he is one of them. And he's spoken on stages with them like Les Brown, Brian Tracy, Tom Hopkins, Tom Ferry's father was it Mike Ferry?
Mike Ferry. By the way, I'm
Yeah,
doing that next week. I'm speaking with Brian Tracy and Les Brown and Bob Proctor and not Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen, the other co-author of Chicken Soup.
amazing. And let me just brag. That's amazing. I'm gonna have to get some information on that event. But let me brag about you a little bit more. You've won the Golden Gavel, the Cavett Award, the Sales and Marketing Hall of Fame. You're a former National Speaking Association president. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, I think we only have about an hour, so I don't know if I can go through all your credentials, but thank you for carving out the time, even in your transition from a Californian to a Texan. So thank you again, Jim, for being here. Look at that. It's already—
That's where I live.
Amazing. I love it. Not too far from the water.
Yep. 7 minutes from my house to the water.
I love it. So the reason I wanted to bring Jim on, and especially into this group, is because of his skill set, like accumulated over 40 years, like 45 years now, being in this space of speaking, influencing, motivating, teaching, leading, building culture amongst teams of one size teams all the way to multi-billion-dollar organizations like the Amgens to the Four Seasons of the world. And he's going to help us out here with sales struggles, connections, building relationships. And I'm going to kind of lean on you on this, Jim.
Done. All right. Over to me.
Over to you, Jim.
Over to me. Well, all of us are in sales. Not all of us are called a salesperson, but all of us are in the business of having to sell our ideas or get other people to join us in an effort or do something that requires us persuading them to commit. And if you think of selling in the old ways, you think of selling as persuading, talking people into something. In other words, it's taking from people. I don't see selling that way at all. I see selling as a way of helping people and getting a profit from doing it. And if you could help someone with your product, your service, just your personal assistance, and you cannot get the other person to accept it and or pay for it if that's appropriate, then you don't get to make the world better. Everything remains the same. Your gift lies dormant within you. Things don't improve. Well, so how does a person live a fulfilling, rewarding, satisfying life? Well, as Rahul mentioned, I've been in this business for 45 years in the field of personal development. And I've talked with people in virtually every industry you can imagine at every level of it, you know, from starter to the world's leading authority in that field. And when you ask them, what do you want to do with your life? It all boils down to this. Vast majority of people will tell you, I just want to help people. You just want to help people. Okay. Well, if you go help people and you don't earn any money, how long can you keep on helping people? Not very long. In other words, you quit because you run out of resources and you have to go do something else to earn money, right? So helping people is what life is all about. It's about living fully, realizing our gifts and getting those out into the world so it serves somebody. Because if you've got the ability to do something well and you don't do it, you cheat the rest of us out of it. We could have benefited from that. So I believe it's our obligation and our opportunity at the same time to do the things we can do well and to become better and better and better at them over time. You say, well, there's not anything I can do well that people are willing to pay for. You left out the last word. Nothing I can do well that others are willing to pay for. What last word? Yet. You're not a rock. You're not a static piece of something that doesn't change. You're a human being. You're evolving all the time. You're either atrophying, becoming less, or growing and becoming more. It's your daily duty and mine to learn something today, to do something that helps today, to expand our abilities, to practice our skills, to keep them alive and alert and ready to use when we need them. So today is your opportunity to continue what you're good at and get better at what you could be good at, which may be the same thing, maybe something new. And when you do that, then you need to sell others on cooperating with you so that you can apply that in your world and their world in such a way that you make everything better for people. Okay. That's when I wrote the book Relationship Selling years ago, and I've rewritten that 9 times. It came out first in 1985, and I've rewritten it a number of times since then. And it's been translated all over the world. And I teach college courses on that. People say, well, it's not just about relationships. Correct. Relationship selling is not about going and building relationships. It's about selling. And it's an approach to selling that considers a relationship to be an asset. Look at the glare that's coming in. The idea of treating a relationship as an asset means looking at every human connection and saying, okay, there are people I just see on the street, zero connection. There are people who are part of my life forever, total connection. Between those two extremes is every relationship in my life and every future relationship of my life. Okay. So how do I get the relationships that have the greatest potential, and you don't always know which ones those are, to progress from casual acquaintance to lifetime friend or coworker or partner? How do I get people along that continuum? Well, there are known steps, and that's what I addressed in the book and in the training that I do around the concept of relationship selling. I show people how to take each connection and use that as the beginning of you being of value to them. See, a relationship is not just someone you know. It's not just someone you have a good experience with. A relationship is a direct connection between people in which value is exchanged. Now, what does that mean? Value is exchanged. I give you a product, you give me money. Value is exchanged. I provide a service, you pay a contract with me. Value is exchanged. I help you unload your car, you help me hang a painting in my home. Value is exchanged. Okay? So in every relationship, if you want it to become a stronger, better relationship, look for ways to add value to it. Pay it forward, pay in advance. So ask yourself, how can I, if I want that person as a customer, how can I be of value to them? Well, that brings up another question. Who determines what's valuable? You don't. They do. Value can only be determined by the recipient of the value, not the provider. I've had a lot of salespeople and a lot of business people over the years say to me, well, no, I give great value. I'm their friend. I blah, 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 and they talk about I'm. That's not how you find out whether something's valuable. The only way to know is if they value it. You say, well, they don't realize it yet. Okay, then they don't value it yet. It's like my friend Daniel Burris, who's a futurist, a forecaster. He said, it's a mistake to assume people know what they might want. Because if they don't know what's possible, they're going to ask for too little. Think about that. If people don't know what's possible, they will ask for too little. So part of our job in sales and in any business, part of the marketing message is showing people what's possible, showing them how much better it could be. You know, it may be that what we've got's not the best in the world, but maybe it's the least expensive. Maybe it's the easiest to use. Maybe it's the one that's available and the other ones are hard to get. Maybe it's the one that involves more personal attention and service from us than you would get from the other, even though their product or service might be better, right? So you've got some kind of a value edge. You need to determine what that is and emphasize that, and then talk with people, as many people as possible, but not telling, listening, asking, probing. See, if I go into a group of strangers and I say, hey, let me tell you about me. I am so wonderful. I am so valuable. Oh my God, you're going to love me. And I just talk about me. Most of them will stop listening real soon. I won't get through to many people. But if I go into a group of people and I watch for a few minutes and I observe, let's say it's a networking event, I don't know a soul. I go there and I smile at people and say hello. And I watch who's gathering with whom and who's listening to whom. And then I walk over to somebody and I say, excuse me, Rahul, I notice everybody in the room makes a point of coming and saying hello to you. So clearly you're a go-to guy in this group. What do you do? And Rahul says, well, who are you? I'm Jim Cathcart. I'm new to the group. I work in the field of sales. Nice to meet you. What is it that draws everybody to you? And then he tells me something, and we've begun a great conversation. First off, I complimented him. Second, it was a sincere compliment, not some slimy, hey, you look like a big guy, that kind of compliment. It was real. And I engaged him in conversation. See, that's the thing. Most new salespeople go to an event and immediately start talking. No. Go and listen. Learn some great questions that get people to want to share their ideas with you. When you do that, you become an interesting person. My son used to work in a UPS store, and mailboxes, etc. That's right. And so there's an earlier version of the UPS store. And he said, Dad, I've noticed something. He said, the people who get the most mail send the most mail. Well, the people who get the most interest from others show the most interest in others. If you want to be interesting, first be interested in the other person. Let me kill that little click there. Be interested in the other person. If you're interested in the other person, they will find you to be interesting. I went years ago, 1978, to the National Speakers Association meeting, a group that today is about 4,000 professional speakers, authors, and experts from around the world. And as Rahul mentioned, I'm a past national president of that group. And when I went to my first ever NSA, National Speakers Association meeting in 1978 in Louisville, Kentucky, there were about 200 people there, and I was a new kid on the block, and I knew nobody. So I went up to the registration desk, and after doing the processing for my registration, I said, I'm new here. Is there any way I can help? Well, thanks for offering. Yes, we need somebody to put these signs up on the meeting rooms down the hall. Great, I'll do that. Is there anything else I can do? Yeah. Would you help us move the chairs in the main meeting room? Glad to do it. And then I just took that attitude at the entire meeting. I'm there to help. I'm there to listen and learn. And when I saw some groups at the first gathering, the cocktail party, I walked up to one of the groups and stood nearby. I didn't insert myself into the circle, But as I stood nearby, one of them noticed me and they opened the circle. In other words, come on in. I said, hello. I said, come on in. Who are you? I'm Jim Cathcart. And at that time, I lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, not Austin, Texas, like today. And I said, I'm Jim Cathcart from Tulsa. Well, hey, Jim, welcome to the group. What do you do? And I gave very brief answers and then immediately took interest in them so that it put it back in the hands of the people who could really teach me something. And I ended up leaving that meeting with about 4 or 5 really good new friends. And those friendships continue to this day. That's amazing to me.
That is incredible. 42 years later.
Yeah.
I want to actually reverse time for a second. I want to go back 45 years. Yes, our back our what is it, time machine here. Back to the Future. That's what I was thinking of. So 45 years ago, you had mentioned you were in a government job, maybe before that.
Yeah.
And you were talking about you learned how to become an expert, because a lot of people that are going to watch this may feel like they're not an expert and they're trying, they're failing, they're stumbling, they're trying a lot of things. But can you talk about how many hours it takes to become an expert, just so people know? Yeah.
Well, that's, that is sort of my main backstory that so many people have heard about. And it's important because it's part of who I am today. I was at age 26, a government clerk. I had no college degree, no money in the bank, no connections, I didn't know anybody who had a position of high authority. My dad was a telephone repairman. Mom worked at home, took care of me, my sister, and my invalid grandfather and grandmother when I was young. So here I was, 26 years old, newly married with a baby at home, 50 pounds overweight, 2-pack-a-day smoker, never exercised a day in my life except for fun. No particular skills. I hadn't been a great student in school, hadn't been an athlete. And I'm working in a $525 a month dead-end job as a clerk, assisting a man who's not even busy. So I was sitting there bored to tears one day in 1972, and there was a radio playing in the next room, and it had its deep voice on it. And it was the voice of Earl Nightingale. Earl Nightingale was at that time the Tony Robbins of the day, or the Oprah Winfrey or the whatever. He was the big deal. He was on 900 radio stations all over the world. And his program was called Our Changing World, and it was always an inspiring short message. Well, that particular day in 1972, he said, if you will spend 1 extra hour each day studying your chosen field, you'll be a national expert in that field in 5 years or less. And I thought, now, wait a minute, do the math. An hour a day, let's say 5 days a week, 1 extra hour a day studying one subject only. That's 5 hours every week. Okay, 50 weeks a year, 250. All right, times 5 years, that's 1,250 hours. 1,250 hours on one topic? Yeah, even somebody like me could become a leading authority on that subject. What do I want to be an expert at? Well, not urban renewal, which was the agency I worked in. And I started to study real estate, and I was studying as if I was going to take the real estate exam. And it was interesting. I really liked it, but I didn't want to go in that path. And then it hit me a couple weeks later. I want to do what he does. Who? The guy on the radio. So I wanted to be like Rahul. I wanted to be the guy on the radio that was bringing inspiring messages to other people. Well, I had no clue what that meant. And I had 2 problems that would kind of limit one's career in professional speaking. I'd never given a speech and I had nothing to say. Well, that'll hold you back. So I thought, okay, what can I do? Well, I decided to take him at his word. I decided to become a fanatical, look it up, exactly like it means in the dictionary, fanatical student of the field of personal development, self-improvement. And so I went to all the old original books. Things like The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz, Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, See You at the Top by a new guy at the time, Zig Ziglar, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. By the way, in 1972, that was about it. There weren't lots of books, and there was no section in a bookstore that was dedicated to self-improvement or psychology or motivation or even business for that matter. Back then, the only business books you could find were textbooks. The only books on self-improvement might be some obscure psychological book or some biblical text. Okay, that was it. So I wanted to become an expert in a field where there was not much material available. So I just started listening to Earl Nightingale's recordings. I bought, for more than 1 month's salary, a library of Earl Nightingale's audio recordings. I'll show you something. These are the audio recordings. There were, and I'll show you what's inside this, audio cassettes and the text of the audio cassette. And there were 48 of these. This one is 20 minutes that can change your life. And this message is the one that has that hour a day idea in it. This one's the common denominator of success, which is that successful people form the habit of doing what unsuccessful people don't like to do.
Those audio tapes are absolute classics.
Oh, yeah.
And those are in mint condition. I must
Yes.
be for keeping
I've
those.
got them all right up there on the shelf. And I spent easily 1,000, maybe multiple thousands of hours listening to those again and again and again, because I realized I had grown up with a very limited worldview, a very small-minded approach to becoming successful. I kind of thought success would be going to work for the phone company like Dad, but working in an office instead of in the field.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a telephone repairman. I thought maybe I'd be a clerk or a manager or something like that. And I started listening to these tapes to intentionally change my own thinking. I wanted to get a different way of looking at the world. I wanted to be like successful people are. And so I listened and listened and listened and listened. And each time I would hear some different facet of it and think, I hadn't thought about that before. Well, that makes good sense. And over time, over about a 2-year period, my whole mindset evolved and it started showing up in my work. And I started getting promotions and opportunities and raises. Wow. Well, I didn't want a career at the housing authority. So what am I going to do? You know, they elected me the president of the Employees Association, which was always a joke because we didn't really have one. I mean, on paper we did, but it was just the group that organized the annual picnic. And they said, Jim, you weren't at the Employees Association meeting. I said, we have one? They said, yeah. And haha, we elected you president. They thought it was a joke. Well, I thought, well, if I'm president of something, I should take it seriously. So I did. And I started talking to people. What would an employees association do? And I went and met with the executive director of the housing authority, Clifton Giles. And I said, hey, what can I do in this position to be helpful to the employees and to you? He said, well, we blah, 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 blah. And I went out and I had surveyed the employees and I came back with suggestions and ideas and ended up getting free parking for everyone near our downtown offices where we always used to have to walk 5 or 6 blocks, and got a whole bunch of other things done. And then I got new job opportunities and I left the housing authority and went into the field of personal development selling Earl Nightingale's recordings door to door to businesses.
It's amazing.
And for a couple of years, that's what I was doing. I was going door to door to businesses, selling these motivational recordings, and then doing presentations to teach people why to listen, and how to use the ideas. Well, that got pretty good. And I joined the JC's, Junior Chamber of Commerce. And the JC's purpose, unlike, say, Kiwanis or Lions or Rotary, is not community service. It's leadership training through community service. In other words, the JC's, is the Junior Chamber of Commerce, is for young people, young adults, to serve their community while learning leadership skills, how to plan, organize, motivate, that kind of thing. And they had a course called Leadership in Action that was a discussion course. And I went to one of them and I loved it. And I said, I want to do it again. They said, well, we don't have a leader. Here's the leader's manual. Why don't you lead one? Okay, what do I do? I don't know, read the book. So I read the book, held the meeting, asked the questions, had another great experience. Well, I did it again, and then I did it again. Rahul, I did 400 of those meetings in 2 years, 1973 and 74. 400. You know how much I made in round numbers?
That's a round number.
That's the roundest number I know. I made zero because I was doing this as a volunteer activity after work and on weekends. And it consumed my life. I mean, I loved what I was doing. I was studying the field of personal development, getting involved in dialogue with other people, driving all over the state of Arkansas where I lived at the time. I was in Little Rock, Arkansas at the first of that. And I went to, 400 meetings. I probably went to 150, 200 cities in Arkansas in that 2-year period. Cities. Some of them aren't, some of them are like 7 houses at an intersection in the country. I spoke in fire stations, living rooms, church basements, barber shops, log cabin, literally by Coleman Lantern, had a group of people in a log cabin, outdoor meetings, indoor meetings. Now, when you do that, you encounter virtually every problem that a person in meetings would ever encounter. I had people get ill in the meeting, have a medical emergency. I had loud noise coming from nearby. I had lighting problems, cold, hot, people showing up late. People didn't get the message and nobody showed up. Too many people, too small a space. No parking nearby, every problem you can imagine. And I learned through trial and error, through pain and some success, to deal with just about anything life can throw at you. And including insects in the meeting, including having people walk in and say, hey, excuse me, where's so-and-so, right in the middle of your big emotional keynote story. I had all these things. And many of those times they were asking me not just to lead a discussion, but to give a speech. Well, after 2 years of that, I was able to go out on my own as a professional speaker. But first, I was noticed by the national headquarters of the JC's that was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And they said, hey, you're doing really, really well. You're winning awards for what you're doing in Arkansas. Come up here and be the full-time guy in charge of leadership training for the nation, for all 356,000 members. So I got a raise to $1,000 a month. Rahul, can you imagine? In 1 month, getting that much money every month. And so I moved to Tulsa and I went to work designing training programs and going around the country, giving speeches at big conventions to get people to use our training programs. And I did that for 2 years and then went into business full-time for myself. And that's what I've been doing ever since. So I went from being a know nothing, do nothing, fat clerk at a government agency in Little Rock, Arkansas, to being a full-time professional speaker and author, traveling the country and then ultimately the world, losing 50 excess pounds, getting in fit back in 1976, getting fit and staying fit from then to this day at age 74. And oh my God, I mean, I transformed my world. I achieved every award and honor that is bestowed on professional speakers I've received. I've been blessed. And I've written 20 books that are translated in languages all over the world. The ones that are best known, in addition to relationship selling, are the Acorn Principle and the Power Minute, the Self-Motivation Handbook. But I've got, 17 others on top of that and 2 more in the works right now.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that story. And I want to kind of summarize that for everybody here. Like, Jim spoke for free for 400 events for over 2 years, and talk about experience, talk about getting to know your market and really dissecting the problems, the pains, and the issues that people actually feel like. And these are like different types of pains. Like, it's too hot. A mosquito bit me. There's a party going down the street and I'm talking. So, I mean, he's seen it all, and all of that stuff is prepared for all the opportunities that was in front of him, which it wasn't, it was a preparation met opportunity. You were chosen versus pitching or fighting for these positions. So you demonstrated, when you said the exchange of value, the recipient determines the value. You gave and gave and gave. And sometimes as salespeople, our giving is not sincere. Our giving is for the sale. And people sense that. People will understand that you're getting to a point. They feel the question, the pressure. They're waiting for it. So I want to kind of ask you some questions here, Jim, about like, like you said something about asking good questions.
Yeah.
Now, a majority of the people in this group are going to be people trying to truly help people. And you mentioned you have to make money to be able to have the resources to continue, right?
Exactly.
And they want to charge money, whether it's $1,000 or $5,000 a month, help a business out with marketing to say, hey, we can help you get in front of eyeballs on social media and Google. What would you guide somebody to, like, questions? Let's say like you're presenting to me and I own a restaurant.
Okay. I'll say, Rahul, my name's Jim Cathcart. I am a problem solver for businesses like yours. I would love to learn about your business.
Awesome. Yeah. So I own this restaurant on the lake.
So first off, what would your thought process be if I said something like that? And I just made this up on the spot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If I heard that, it would catch me off guard. Number one, saying like, oh, why is this guy expressing interest in me so quickly?
And what does he mean by problem solver for restaurants?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Like, what can you do to help me?
So you might say, well, okay, smart ass. You're a problem solver for restaurants. What kind of problems do you solve? And let's assume you're just highly, highly skeptical, cynical, right? Yeah. What kind of problems do you solve? Well, see those empty tables over there? That's one of the problems I solve. What do you mean? Tables? No, customers. You don't have customers at those tables yet? That's one of the things I specialize in. Another thing, there are people that drive by here, don't realize what's in here. I solve that problem. Another problem I solve is online shopping. So many people shop now, even for dinner online, that a lot of times the way you present yourself online determines whether or not you even get examined, whether they even click on the menu to see what's here, right? And another thing is, just total experience. I look at the experience of a restaurant from having a hunger, in other words, wanting to eat or celebrate or do whatever people do at a restaurant, having that impulse, looking around, thinking of options, checking it out, going to the location. What's the experience like from the beginning of that thought process all the way through paying the check and walking out smiling and bragging about this to all my friends? That's the kind of problem I solve.
I love it.
I don't even have to say, would you like to know more? I know I hit some of his hot buttons in that, right?
Right, right, right. So somebody not as experienced as you. That was
Yeah,
gold right there, by the way.
yeah,
Now, what are some good like problem awareness or probing questions that
that's
have,
easy.
yeah,
Easy. First off, what problem do all businesses have?
I would say a customer problem is
Yeah,
one of them. They have a
sales.
tip.
You know,
Mhm.
they're not doing enough business. They're not enough people are paying them to do what they do yet. Yet. Write that word down. Yet.
Mhm.
Okay. So not enough people are paying them to do what they do yet. Whether you're a salon or a chiropractor or a auto parts place or a grocery store or a restaurant, it doesn't matter what business you're in. If a business is open for business, the main thing they want is customers. Okay.
Mhm.
So we know they've got a customer issue. It may be pretty good right now, but that's an issue that all businesses are interested in. Number two, they've got a cost issue.
Mhm.
Things cost more than they would like them to cost. You know, even if you're getting them for almost free or you're getting them free, but you obligated to your brother-in-law because you're getting it for free, that's still a payment. And people are concerned about cost. So they're concerned about customers and sales. They're concerned about cost. They're concerned about um, operating overhead, and not just overhead in price, but what it takes to do what they do. It's too darn hard to open up in the morning, close down in the evening. We've got to bring all those motorcycles off the curb, back into the dealership, close the place down and keep them secure. We've got to drop the screen on the front of our retail shop to keep people from breaking in at night. We've got, it's just too much trouble to get to our location because the only place we could afford was down here at the end of this road. And we'd like to be up there where the main traffic flow is. Think about it. People getting from, people going in, opening up, doing the work. Just think of any aspect of business, all the moving parts, and decide which one you want to focus on helping them solve. And marketing, of course, is huge because marketing is about making people aware that you exist in a way that they want to know more. So the purpose of marketing is to stimulate curiosity and interest. Purpose of selling is to convert the curiosity and interest into business. The purpose of doing that for pay is to help the other person so that at the end of the experience or process or receipt of the product, they go brag to other people about you and the marketing costs go down because more customers are marketing for you. Then there's people problems, personnel, processes, training, experience, attitudes, interpersonal communication, all those kind of things. There's technology problems. So choose a problem you like solving. And then go out and talk with people about it and just say, hey, I'm a problem solver for people in this field. I'd love to learn more about your business. We're not in the business. We're not in the market for anything right now. Fine. I'm not here to make a sale. I'm just here out of curiosity. I would love to know more about your business because you're yet another example of the people in the field that I specialize in. And someday, sooner or later, you're probably going to need what I do. So I want to know you, want you to know me. Would you mind if I asked a few questions? No, go ahead.
That's a great opening. You're basically releasing the pressure that
Yeah.
you're putting on a person and genuinely creating, like you mentioned, a relationship that two parties know each other. And then they're going to remember that conversation if it's meaningful and you have the right attitude and
Yeah.
they genuinely like you.
Friend of mine, David Newman, who's a
Hmm.
marketing guru, he says you should go out into the marketplace unarmed and curious. In other words, you're not out there to make a sale. You're out there to discover opportunities to be of help.
Mm-hmm.
And if you discover an opportunity where you can't be of help, what was that word you wrote down?
Yet.
There you go. Then you go ahead and build the beginning of a friendship, a business friendship, not a social friendship. Different rules, right? Different expectations, a business friendship. You build the beginning of a business friendship and you stay in touch, because sooner or later, if they're in your market, they're going to need or want what you have.
Yeah. And speaking of markets, when we were talking before we went live here on this interview, we were talking about choosing a market. There's natural markets and then there's chosen markets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, can you walk us through that?
Absolutely. Your natural market is people you have access to right now. My natural market would be people within a couple of miles of my house or business. It would be people I already know, classmates, family members, coworkers, just natural connections where I don't have to explain anything. I can just say, hey, I live right down the street, and that right there, I've justified my being there, right? A chosen market is a group of people with whom I want to do some business, and I don't have anything going for me yet. Okay. So let's define a market. A market is a group of people who have enough in common with each other, independent of you, in common with each other, that you could establish a reputation among them. A group of people who have enough in common with each other that you could establish a reputation among those people. That's a pretty good definition, I think. Because if you think of it that way, you say, okay, my operations out here in the shady part of town, that's all I could afford. But I'm mobile. I want to do business in the upscale part of town. Okay, identify that geographic area and then start doing your advertising and marketing there. Show up on the websites they look at. Do the signage they drive by every day. Go and build at least one customer, even if you have to give away your services at first, meaning yet, right? You're not paid yet. Give away your services at first to that customer just to get a foothold in that chosen area or among that group. And then when you go to Rahul, you say, Rahul, I'm Jim Cathcart. You said, Jim, I've never heard of you before. Well, I've been doing business with George over here. Oh, now Rahul knows George because George is the guy in that marketplace that I've established something with. Years ago, Tulsa, Oklahoma, I left the JCs, went into business on my own. Joe Willard was the general agent of a Mass Mutual life insurance company agency in Tulsa. He was new. And I was asked by him to come and give a speech at one of his agency meetings. So I did, and he paid me a small fee. At the end of it, he said, Jim, you went over really well with my agents, and I like the way you think. Would you come back in a few months and do a program again for our staff? Sure. So a few months later, I come back. Well, they've moved from an old seedy office building to the penthouse floor of a nice new office building. I get off the elevator. There's a huge chandelier. There's a receptionist. The appointments are all gorgeous. She says, let me take you back to Mr. Willard. We go down this long, beautiful hallway. In Joe's big office, I sit down. He pushes a button, the door closes. He pushes a second button, the drapes close. I start looking for seams in the carpet, thinking there's a trapdoor that'll drop me out of his office. And he said, Jim, I changed my mind. I said, obviously, you don't need me. You are way out of my class. He said, no, not that way. I changed my mind about having you do a program for my staff. I want you instead to move into one of our corner offices and be here all the time. I said, but Joe, I don't want a career in life insurance. He said, I know you want to be a professional speaker. You got to do it from somewhere. Join us. I said, well, I'm making at that time, $1,500 a month over here at the USJCs. I hadn't left there yet. And so, I can't just up and move. He said, we can cover that. So he said, okay, I'll guarantee you the replacement of your salary over there, a luxury office over here, the freedom to build your speaking career and to go out and do what you're dreaming of doing just be around and help us coach my agents and be a counselor and advisor to me. I jumped over the desk and shook his hand to confirm that deal. I moved into that office and I was there 6 years. So the first 6 years of my business as a professional speaker, author, and trainer, I had zero office overhead. I had a conference room, a full-time cook, a little conference table in my own office. I had a corner office that was luxurious. I had a staff that I could get to do administrative work for me, a gold stamping machine, a laminating machine, a copier, all these things at my disposal at zero cost. And I was being paid a minimal salary. And I did that for about 7 or 8 months. And then I had booked so many speeches around the country, I couldn't justify taking Joe's money. He said, okay, I'll stop paying you the retainer, keep the office, stay here. So I did for an additional few years. And I ended up doing like 120 speeches a year, flying all over the country. And then I'd come back to Tulsa, and then I would practice all the new ideas that I had on his team. Well, his team during my time there went from a failing agency to #1 in their category out of the 125 Massachusetts mutual agencies. We won the President's Trophy twice, and the other agencies started flying in to find out what we were doing so right in Tulsa. Joe said, you guys are getting in my way. Hire Jim to come to you. So I picked up 36 more speaking engagements, doing training for Mass Mutual, and then I was hired by their home office. Rahul, when that started, I had no success experience in life insurance, knew nobody in that field in Tulsa. At the end of those 6 years, I had spoken on the main platform of the $1 Million Roundtable. I had spoken at the General Agents and Managers Conference that year was in New Orleans. I had flown all over the country speaking for the top insurance gatherings. Oh my God, chosen market.
That's amazing. I love that story because you just provided so much value and then you created this demand for yourself. And it all comes down to not just giving away your services for free. That's one way to get people to know, like, and trust you to lower the barrier. But the other part is the thousands of hours put in to lead up to this opportunity, the preparation.
Let me throw in one more thing in the mix.
Yeah.
Where did Joe Willard find out about me? Well, I was doing a night course, a training program at night at Tulsa Junior College for $15 a session, 15.00, $15 a session. I was doing a course on goal setting and time management. And one of the students in that course knew Joe and recommended me to him. So, you know, even the little trivial things that we think don't matter sometimes are huge. And Earl Nightingale, you know, in 1974, I was selling his tapes door to door. In 1984, he was selling my audio album and sold $3.5 million worth of my album. How did he find out about me? A free article I wrote in the Nonprofit World Report that he just happened to pick up one day. And at the end of reading it, he called me in California, where I'd moved in the interim, and said, hey, I publish audio albums. I said, oh, believe me, I know. He said, well, I think this would make a good audio album. And of course, it became one and hit a home run.
Where do I get a copy of this audio album?
This audio album is called Relationship Strategies for Dealing with the Differences in People.
Okay.
Published by Nightingale Conant Corporation. And it's co-authored with Tony Alessandra. There's a newer version that's only Tony Alessandra. Tony was a college professor when we did the first album, and I was a speaker, and he wanted to get into my business, and I wanted to know what he had learned as a professor. So we collaborated, and the first one was called Relationship Strategies by Jim Cathcart and Tony Alessandra, in that order. And it was the first audio album ever published on personality types. Pause. What did I just say? There are people all over the world teaching personality types. There's Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, there's social styles, there's, all these various versions. This was the first audio album on personality types ever widely published. And it was by me and Dr. Tony Alessandra.
That's so awesome. And what's even more awesome, maybe not more, but maybe other guys in the audience can relate, is that microphone Jim is speaking into right now is a client of his. And you guys probably recognize that, the Yeti.
Yep, the blue Yeti.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Any additional tips or ideas, strategies to get anybody in this audience motivated, pumped up, train? Any tips that you would give to a young sales professional?
Well, first off, get a copy of the book, Relationship Selling. It's universally accessible. You can find it in bookstores and online and all that. You can get it in Kindle, so that's easy. I don't have it in audiobook version, but I do have an audio of the entire thing. That's 12 CDs, so it's a little dated. But relationship selling breaks sales into 8 component parts, which are the stages in the sales cycle: preparation, targeting the right people, connecting with the people, assessing their needs, solving their problem, getting their commitment to buy, assuring that they're satisfied, and managing sales and managing yourself. So break that apart and figure out which parts in the sales cycle you're already pretty good at. And then for those areas you're not good at, either become better at them or find resources, tools, techniques, software, or helpers who can make you better at those, because you have to be good in all 8. It's not optional. Because if you're really good at preparation, but not good at targeting the right people, you're going to waste all that good preparation. If you target the right people, but you can't connect with them, they won't trust you and you don't get any business. If you connect with people and you don't assess their needs and wants, then when you start to try to solve their problem, they're going to say, no, dude, I'm not interested in that, because you didn't know what they were interested in. If you solve their problems, in other words, you do your sales presentation, show them the value, and they don't buy, well, then you're just a professional. No, you're just an amateur speaker going out to give presentations for no pay. So if you get people to buy, you become good at confirming sales, not closing them, confirming sales, right? You become good at confirming sales, but you don't assure that they're satisfied, then you're going to lose business. There won't be any customer loyalty because you're not loyal to them. See, I think customer loyalty needs to start with us. We are loyal to our customers, more so than they need to be to us. Whether they pay us more or not, we need to be loyal supporters and encouragers for them. And then if you can't manage sales or manage yourself, then you're going to spoil your resources and lose your opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, well, I would love to have you back sometime and talk about those age stages.
Well, you and I are connected, so definitely I'll be back.
Okay, I love it. Awesome, Jim.
Thank you. By the way, I do small group mentoring. So if anyone is interested in seeing if they're qualified to be in one of those small group mentoring programs, have them just drop me a note, jim@cathcart.com, and say mentoring. And then I will send them a description of how that works. I do it over an 8-week period through Zoom calls like this, and it could truly transform your life.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll put that description in the comments, and go to cathcart.com. Check out Jim. Check out his top 1% of TEDx speaker speech on his homepage. You're going to be blown away. And if you are interested, please email Jim. This guy is an amazing person. I've had the luck to and pleasure to meet him in person, go to coffee, sit down for breakfast. And now we have these Zoom opportunities as well. So thank you so much, Jim. Thanks for being on the show.
Great to be with you, Rahul.
All right. Bye, everybody. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks for doing that, Jim. That was
a treat.
That was really cool. I had a great time, and I know you have a call coming up, so I don't
Yep,
want
4
to
minutes.
yep. I wanted to
Cool.
make sure you have enough time to get some water and get ready for that call as well.
Thank you. All
Awesome.
right.
Take care,
Take care,
Jim.
my friend. Bye-bye.
Bye.